Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. Edie DeVilbiss. My work intersects workplace culture, individual well-being, and leadership development because I believe that the we depends on the me. Today I'd like to talk about self-awareness and compassion fatigue. How do we know when we're suffering? When I was at my worst, I began having nightmares. And it was a very specific nightmare. I dreamed that there was a terrarium in my closet and it held a snake. Now, it was a dream. That's not reality for me. That's not going to happen in my life. And the snake kept getting out. I am dreadfully afraid of snakes. You might even say I'm phobic. That nightmare woke me up. It woke me up physically. I couldn't sleep. But it also woke me up metaphorically, that there was something going on underneath that needed to be dealt with. I needed to find a way to get that snake out of my closet. And through some incidences that happened at work and at home, and in public, and the nightmares, and the being sick all the time, and the headaches and stomach aches, and general disgruntlement and cynicism, and just a pervading sense of negativity, I realized that I needed to do something different. Now, until that realization, I thought it was everybody else's fault. You know, if people weren't such idiots, I wouldn't have to be such a cynic. If my family would do what I needed them to do, I wouldn't have to be angry with them. If my coworkers would just do things the way I wanted them to be done, then I wouldn't have to be angry at work. That self-awareness was not very present in me. Now, I started out life as a pretty sunny kid. I was pretty optimistic and positive, and I have gotten back to that. And that's why it's hard to talk about the negativity without smiling, because I'm beyond it. There is life after compassion fatigue. But people who knew me then and people who walk through this with me can tell you that I was not always a pleasant person. Now, I always tried to be, and sometimes I succeeded even when I was at my worst. But there were times when I was pretty horrible. I can't help but wonder, though, what if I had been in a workplace culture that paid attention to compassion fatigue? I was in 911, where about a fourth of the people who are in that profession will experience compassion fatigue or PTSD to the level where they seek help. That's not to say that that's all the ones who suffer. Some people go for years and suffer in silence. They just are cranky and cranky and cranky. They go numb with their emotions. People develop addictions to get away from the pain. People develop poor coping skills or mechanisms like overeating. And there are so many risk factors with the work itself, with mandatory overtime, with being overtired all the time, and the physiological effects of the adrenaline and cortisol that gets stored in our bodies, and the physiological effects of not limited movement and not taking enough breaks and holding our bladders too long. I mean, there's just so many things in emergency communications that are dreadful for our physical well-being, but it's also dreadful for our emotional well-being and our spiritual well-being. It's hard to love your neighbor when you deal with people's pain every day. When we talk to people at their worst moments, it feels helpless and hopeless. What if our workplaces recognize that this is a hazard? You know, in construction sites, you see people who have to wear hard hats, and they have to wear steel-toed boots If they're climbing on something, they need to have a harness on and a lanyard to connect them. Why? OSHA requires it because it's hazardous. It's not comfortable, it's not easy, it's not fun. It just saves their lives. What if we did things that were not comfortable or easy or maybe even fun that saved our lives? What if we paid attention to this? What if we opened up the conversation so that when somebody is suffering, they don't have to suffer in silence. They don't have to fall under the code of suck it up and deal with it. Or you're a weakling if it hurts. You're not a weakling if it hurts. You're human. If you didn't care, it wouldn't hurt. You're a caring being. People go into this field because they want to help people. If you're in a compassionate field, it's because you want to help people. And helping hurts us sometimes. We need to pay attention to our own well-being, but we need to pay attention to the well-being of everyone in the group. Because when one person is suffering and starting to snap and snarl and be horrible, it affects the other people. Snapping and snarling and being horrible are contagious, just as laughter and joy are. What would it be like if we paid attention to our number one health hazard? Seems like it would make sense. So, I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope that it gives you something to think about. I would invite you, I do invite you, to sign up to receive my newsletter and enjoy learning more and paying attention to this health hazard.